This is PBS, Pirate Broadcast Systems. PBS is a free and independent news group, without censorship or restrictions. We are not bounded by any rules or laws made by any country, state, government, or other regulating force. We are an open source for all users of the Internet. We are a non-profit organization. Our goal is to create awareness, equality, and unity among humankind, to care and to share our precious world and its environment. Here is the news. Hacking Team Root message. The hacking Team Root has released a new pastebin release. In the pastebin they have a message to the governments in the world, and they have made a list of their government defacements. In the pastebin file you will also see the full members list of Team Root. To the governments of the world, it is time you listened and acted upon what would benefit and help the people of your countries. It is now time for you to start listening to the voices of your nation and deal with the problems that are occurring every single day. You were elected and made promises to your people that you must keep. We declare our rights on this earth to be human beings, to be respected as human beings, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary. Malcolm X, your corrupted ways, greed, love for money and fame need to stop. Your excuses to go to war, all for their oil, are unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Your people have the right to have their voices heard, and you, the government, must listen to your nation. You cannot arrest, torture and lock up citizens if you do not agree with their views, but must listen and act upon them. Everyone has the right to freedom of speech, and your people must be allowed this freedom. Stop, listen and take action that will help benefit your nation. Team Root has arrived. We are the voice for the suppressed people of the world, and we will show you the truth. Here is the news. Iran stages cyber warfare drill alongside Hormuz's naval exercise. Iranian forces have conducted a cyber warfare drill for the first time as their naval forces conducts major exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, testing a brand new air defense missile system. The Iranian Navy has staged a cyber attack against the computer network of its defense forces in order to simulate a hack or a virus infiltration of a foreign aggressor. The English-language Iran Daily reported, quoting Rear Admiral Amir Astghari. The Rear Admiral continued that the fake cyber attack was successfully blocked by Iranian forces. Tehran has developed military and civil cyber units in the past few years to counter cyber attacks on its nuclear sites, oil and industrial facilities, its communications network and banking systems. Tehran has allegedly been attacked by the FAME, Stuxnet and GOS viruses, which managed to gather sensitive information about Iranian equipment and have hampered the work of its nuclear centrifuges. The US and Israel have been tacitly implicated in the virus attacks. Naval exercises are also taking place in the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman, which Iranian military officials have stressed are for showing off the country's defensive naval capabilities and sending a message of peace and friendship to regional countries. Several submarine-based missiles were tested during the attack, according to Iranian media sources. These included an Iranian-made air defense system called RAAD, or Thunder, and domestically produced hovercraft. Iran says the RAAD system is more advanced than the Russian one it replaced and can knock out fighter jets, cruise missiles and drones at a height of up to 23 kilometers. Tehran has been trying to build up a self-sufficient military, in particular its navy, since 1992, as Iran believes any future conflict will be fought on the sea and in the air. The drills come at the same time as the West is increasing pressure on Iran over its nuclear program, which it suspects is aimed at producing a nuclear bomb. Iran insists it is purely for the peaceful production of electricity. The West had slapped sanctions on Iran for its nuclear program, which they maintain is for the production of nuclear weapons. The West argues that imposing sanctions will make it harder for Iran to acquire the money and materials to develop a bomb. Iran has threatened to retaliate by closing the Strait of Hormuz. Here is the news. Cyber nuclear blast. The end of nuclear weapon age is not so far. The main goal of using a nuclear bomb is to shut down the enemy. a computer program can do the same. Cyber war stakes rising. U.S. intelligence officials have warned as nation-sponsored cyber warfare goes mainstream this year, attacks on U.S. installations and institutions could result not just in damage and theft but in fatalities. They believe fatalities could occur, and that is the best estimate at this point, said the former senior intelligence official. Currently 12 of the world's 15 largest military powers are building cyber warfare programs, these intelligence sources told ISS Source, adding the number of intrusions and attacks has increased dramatically over the last several years. U.S. security researchers have warned because of vulnerability in the firmware, attackers could tap into voice over IP, VoIP, products from Cisco and other manufacturers. The research at Columbia Engineering, funded by U.S. military research arm, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, found the flaw affected all 14 of Cisco's unified IP phone models that are used in government departments and corporations around the world. Equipment from other manufacturers could also be vulnerable. By inserting malware into handsets, the researchers said they could start eavesdropping on private conversations, not just on the phone but also in the phone's surroundings. It's not just Cisco phones that are at risk. All VoIP phones are particularly problematic since they are everywhere and reveal our private communications, said project leader, Professor Salvatore Stolfo. Last year, cyber attacks at the Iranian government were uncovered, and Iran retaliated with denial-of-service attacks at U.S. banks and Saudi oil companies that are continuing today. Over 10 U.S. banks were under cyber attack by Iranian hackers for over a week, interrupting service. Just Tuesday, Wells Fargo may have also been the victim of a sophisticated campaign of distributed denial-of-service (DoS) attacks. Other victims included Bank of America, PNC, BB&T, JP Morgan Chase and others. In addition, ISS Source reported Iran intensified its attempt to push forward its cyber war capabilities with a 6-month rash of virus attacks that culminated with its hackers disabling 30,000 computers at Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil corporation, this past August, computer and intelligence experts said. The attack took place August 15, when a malware weapon took down at least 30,000 of the company's computers, said Jim Lewis, a computer expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, in Washington. While Aramco officials said production did not suffer from the attack, sources have said it is hard to believe they did not have production issues. Two former senior CIA officials first alerted as the culprit in the attack was Iran working with personnel inside the Aramco's computer center. They said the Saudi regime is investigating the attack and is arresting suspects like operating staff, janitors, office people, and cargo handlers. CIA sources said at the time attack was the work of a disgruntled Shiite insider, or insiders, that had full access to the system. The U.S. is not alone in suffering attacks, as a Syrian government-backed hacker group is now attacking Saudi government websites, particularly focusing on the Saudi Ministry of Defense. Several of the Saudi sites are down. The Syrian Electronic Army is carrying out direction from Syrian intelligence in retaliating against the Saudis for support to the Syrian opposition forces, including jihadis who have been effective in fighting Bashar al-Assad's rule. The Christian Scientist Monitor today published a list of damaging cyber events, including cyber espionage that's intended to scoop up industrial secrets alone costs U.S. companies as much as $400 billion annually, some researchers estimate. Much of that comes over the long term, as stolen proprietary data give firms in other nations, such as China, a leg up by slashing research and development costs. The volume of malicious software targeting U.S. computers and networks has more than tripled since 2009, according to a 2011 report by the Director of National Intelligence. Reports in 2012 corroborate that upward trend. Ransomware netted cybercriminals $5 million last year, by some estimates. Smartphone and other mobile cyber vulnerabilities nearly doubled from 2010 to 2011, according to the cybersecurity firm Symantec. The Pentagon continues to report more than 3 million cyber attacks of various kinds each year on its 15,000 computer networks. Defense contractors such as Lockheed Martin have become key targets as well, the report continued. At a November news conference, Chandra McMahon, Lockheed Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer, said 20% of all threats aimed at the company's networks were sophisticated, targeted attacks by a nation or a group trying to steal data or harm operations. As is reported last week, U.S. builders of America's most advanced combat aircraft, the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, are still frantically rushing to put in place cutting-edge technology that would secure the aircraft's avionics from Chinese hacker attacks. The Chinese got hold of the plans 3 years ago. In addition, 3 years ago, the same hackers who are part of a military cyber group, also stole plans for the F-22 combat aircraft. Both planes are advanced stealth aircraft and considered the most advanced and the most expensive in the world. The former senior U.S. intelligence official said the major U.S. contractors of the plane never thought of designing countermeasures that would act to repel China's extensive hacking programs, and he said the security equipment was never installed. China, who has issued vehement non-denials about the event, long ago created groups of military cyber hackers to pillage intellectual property and military technology. Those units often employed logic bombs and other devices whose purpose is the unauthorized seizure of classified U.S. military or commercial technology. The initial breach occurred when Chinese hackers penetrated the vulnerable computers of British Aerospace, BAE, and the intrusion was done with such skill the Chinese ended up monitoring online meetings and technical discussions of the plane. The attack on BAE lasted 18 months before anyone found out about it. After the breach occurred, officials halted the program, and then restarted with work on the new expensive security system still ongoing, said former U.S. intelligence officials. The hackers behind the cyber attacks on major U.S. banks have repeatedly disrupted online banking by using sophisticated and diverse tools that point to a carefully coordinated campaign, security researchers said. The hackers, believed to be activists in the Middle East, were highly knowledgeable about the defensive equipment used by the banks and likely spent months on reconnaissance, said researchers in a Reuters report, who viewed the assaults as among the strongest and the most complex the world had seen to date. Researchers said the hackers used botnets, which are inexpensive to rent for short periods. What made these botnets much more powerful was they were made up of web servers and not just personal computers. Topping the mounting list of concerns, though, is the accelerating pace of cyber attacks on the computerized industrial control systems that run the power grid, chemical plants, and other critical infrastructure. Richard Sale was United Press International's intelligence correspondent for 10 years in the Middle East Times, a publication of UPI. He is the author of Clinton's Secret Wars and Traitors. Here is the news. Red October cyber attack discovered targeting governments. A piece of espionage malware known as ROCRA or Red October, which secretly gathers highly classified and sensitive information from governments, has been discovered, 5 years after it began operating. Compared to Flame in terms of its complexity, Red October is a piece of cyber espionage malware which targets diplomats, government employees and scientific research organizations, mostly based in Eastern Europe. Red October was first uncovered by Kaspersky Labs back in October 2012, following a tip-off from an anonymous source. Since then the Russian-based security firm has been investigating this complex malware, and through analysis of registration data used to purchase the command and control (C&C) servers, it has estimated the malware could date back as far as 2007. Red October has infected hundreds of users around the world in 8 main categories: government, diplomatic, research institutes, trade and commerce, nuclear research, oil and gas companies, aerospace and military. The amount of highly sensitive data stolen is estimated to be huge, with Kaspersky saying that over the past 5 years it would amount to around 5 terabytes of information. While most of the infected computers identified since October come from Eastern Europe, with the Russian Federation leading the infection list, there have also been infections found in countries like India, the US, Italy and Switzerland. In total there are victims in 39 different countries. Addressing the question of who is behind the attack, Kaspersky Labs said no specific location has been identified by the data collected so far. However, it does point out that the exploits appear to have been created by Chinese hackers and the malware modules have been created by Russian-speaking operatives. Unlike Flame, which was immediately identified as a state-sponsored attack, there is currently no evidence linking Red October to any nation-state. However, Kaspersky Labs do note, the information stolen by the attackers is obviously of the highest level and includes geopolitical data which can be used by nation-states. Such information could be traded in the underground and sold to the highest bidder, which can be, of course, anywhere. Targets. The malware not only targets workstations but also mobile devices like smartphones and tablets, as well as networking gear to give them better access to organizations. Once established within a network, the attackers stole everything from files on desktops, smartphones and FTP servers, to email databases using exploits developed in China and Russian malware. Kaspersky researchers said. Information harvested in earlier attacks has been reused in later attacks. For example, stolen credentials were compiled in a list and used when the attackers needed to guess passwords and network credentials in other locations. The scale of the Red October malware is enormous, with more than 60 domain names and several server hosting locations in different countries, mainly Germany and Russia. The command and control server infrastructure is actually a chain of servers working as proxies in order to hide the location of the main mothership server. The first stage of the attack sees a spear phishing email campaign targeting specific people within the organization. These emails contain a file using known exploits in Microsoft Word and Excel. The documents are tailored for specific victims and the malware modules have specific victim ID numbers. Kaspersky said. Once the file is downloaded and opened, the Trojan is dropped on the machine, which in turn scans the network for other machines vulnerable to a security flaw in Windows, a vulnerability which was also used by the infamous Configure worm. During the past 5 years, the attackers collected information from hundreds of high-profile victims. Although it's unknown how the information was used, it is possible that the information was sold on the black market, or used directly, Kaspersky said in its report. While it compared Okra to Flame in terms of complexity, Kaspersky said it could not find any link between the two pieces of malware. This was the news. PBS, the voice of the anonymous, uncensored and objective news.